All right, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Leadership Blend television show with your gracious host, Ricardo D. Rice. So today is all about the veterans. We're going to be talking about what it looks like for them, transitions, all that great stuff. So for all of you that are either veterans or know people that are veterans, this show will definitely be a help to you or your community. So without further ado, I'm going to let our guest today introduce himself and tell you about him. So take it away, Mr. Lloyd.
Ricardo, thanks so much for having me on the show to talk about my journey and the journey of VETLANTA, and really to bring attention to veterans. So my name is Lloyd Knight. I'm retired from the Air Force. I spent 20 years in the Air Force, 17 as an aircraft loadmaster, and my last 3 years as a first sergeant. Had a great transition from the Air Force and joined corporate America. I'm a director at UPS, and during my 13 years I've been at UPS, I had the opportunity to start the very first Veterans Business Resource Group, which is really a coalition of UPS employees to both focus on bringing veterans inside the company and then making sure veterans succeed once we have them in the company. And from there, I was able to form a group called VETLANTA, which we'll talk all about today.
Exactly. So for those that do not know, because I made this mistake, so I've been saying this on radio, I'm going to say it again. It's not VETLANTA, it's VETLANTA. So if you ever look it up, do not type in VETLANTA, because I did, and I just was getting really frustrated. And then I realized I had too many letters. So VETLANTA. So tell us how it got started.
So VETLANTA got started off of, believe it or not, a phone call. I have a friend, John Phillips, works at Coca-Cola, or is now retired from Coca-Cola, also retired Lieutenant Colonel from the Army. He wanted, to get all the Fortune 500 companies their Veterans Business Resource Group, because just like UPS is a veterans group, Coca-Cola does, Home Depot, AT&T, GE, Delta Airlines, all these Fortune 500 companies have veterans groups. So he wanted to get these groups into a room to talk about what we were doing for veterans. So 6 years ago, in a couple weeks, we met for the very first time, probably 25 of us in a room representing between 12 and 15 companies. And we just went down the list, and each company talked about how we were supporting veterans. And we were amazed. Our companies were doing big things, both nationally, but more importantly, locally, to support veterans. Collectively, we are hiring hundreds of thousands of veterans, donating hundreds of thousands of volunteer hours. And our foundations were contributing millions of dollars of funds, the nonprofits. But what was missing was collaboration. See, this was a great, big, powerful network, but nobody was talking to each other. We were really operating in silos. And so with that very first meeting, it was just bringing people together to talk about what we're doing for veterans. And then we talked a little bit on the radio show, that very first meeting, which will surprise many people who know me. I didn't say a whole lot. I probably said 10 words. And the whole time I was thinking scalability, because the volunteers world is a lot like the military, which is a lot like being an intern, and when you go do a volunteer event, it's the same 2 or 3 people that are helping. So I thought scalability, hey, next time I go down to Veterans Empowerment Organization, which is a homeless veteran shelter here in Atlanta, instead of having the same 2 or 3 people, I can grab 2 from each company, and we can go on and do big and better things. So really that first meeting was our start. It was getting the network together to start talking about how we can help veterans.
So when you guys made the decision to start, because you guys don't have a nonprofit, you guys have a club. Explain that, because most people immediately jump out the gate and go, I should have a 501c3 and we should do these things. You guys opted to do a club. Explain that.
We did we never thought when we first started this that we'd ever be 3,000 members, right? So my first thought was, hey, there's 20 of us in a room. Why put the administrative effort in becoming a 501c3? But really, it was more detailed thought, leadership than that. We had a lot of collaboration meetings, and one of the things we decided was we wanted to focus on collaboration and volunteerism versus fundraising. So we looked at becoming a 501c3, a 501, you name it, an LLC, and became a chartered club. And within that charter, we specifically set a rule that we would not deal with money whatsoever. We would not fundraise, we would not give any money. We would be a club focused on collaboration and volunteerism. So we went really a different route, and that flipped the script in two very unique ways and was responsible for tremendous growth. And the first way it flipped the script was within our own companies. See, if you work at a company and you're a leadership position, and especially if you're community-minded and a community activist, you're going to get asked for money all the time. And then we talked about is, when you meet a nonprofit, sometimes they're not any good. To be very blunt, some of them aren't any good. Then oftentimes they're just looking for that big paycheck, right? And they're looking for funding. And before, as we said, they don't even try to date you. Right?
Yeah, they go straight for a ring.
Hey, we want 100,000 or we need 500,000. And as a community leader, whether you're working for a company or its foundation, you get tone deaf to it, right? Just because so many people ask, and so sometimes you stop paying attention. And what we were able to do is really come up with this elevator speech. And my elevator speech was, "Hey, I'm Lloyd Knight from VETLANTA. I don't want your money." and honestly, that got a lot of attention. That simple message got a lot of attention. And what I would go on and follow up and say, look, we're an organization that is been created to make Atlanta the premier community in the entire country for veterans and their families to work and live.
Okay, so elevator pitches are, you said my keyword, and the TV team knows that first season was all about elevator pitches and coming up with them. So your elevator pitch was what again?
So my elevator pitch was, hey, we don't want your money. And what we want is your collaborative power and your volunteer hours. So so that really flipped the script because they started listening.
Yeah.
And so what we would tell them is what we were up to, making Atlanta the premier community in the entire country for veterans and their families to work and live, and how we were going about doing it. And that really caught on right away. And what we would say is, hey, look, what we do is we need some place to meet. And then we need your employees to get involved. And so let's have a meeting tomorrow night, 7 p.m. at your headquarters. And if you can, throw us a little food at us. Maybe some Coca-Cola, since we live here in Atlanta, or some water. And they jumped on board. And from that, we started growing. And where it flipped the script in the second way was the nonprofits themselves. Because a lot of nonprofits, when we open up the doors to more than the Fortune 500 companies, it's like a herd of cattle running in. And they all wanted these big dollars because they saw all the Fortune 500 companies. Mm-hmm. But what we told them right off the bat, we were very honest with them. We don't have money because we're chartered never to take any money. And so, a lot of, not a lot of them, but some of them left right away. But the good ones stayed, and they saw what we were doing. They were able to build a network. They were able to find volunteers. They were able to try to find champions within our companies and get their mission out there. And guess what? You build all that, you build passion, the money's eventually going to follow. And then it flipped the script on two ways too, because a lot of nonprofits compete with each other. By what we are doing, we're a collaborator on steroids. And we kind of said, hey, if you're going to become part of this VETLANTA community, if you're going to become a member, you have to work with each other. Because the ultimate goal is to help veterans and their families.
This is true. Okay, so not only was your incorporation different with the whole club thing, you guys were able to build something within Fortune 500 companies. How did you guys do that?
So the big thing is we build it from within the Fortune 500 companies. So can you imagine if you're a nonprofit or you're an unaffiliated member and you just getting in front of a Fortune 500 company, that task, right?
Alone, trying to claw your way to their schedule, yeah.
So it was definitely grassroots for us. We didn't have anybody super senior within the companies, but what we had was a lot of veteran advocates and non-veteran advocates. And the non-veteran advocates, we always say in VETLANTA, we're only as strong as our non-veteran advocates. Because a non-veteran advocate, it doesn't seem like self-serving.
Yeah.
And so we started off with small wins and in doing small things. Our first summits, we have quarterly summits, were 20 to 30, 40 people. And started making small differences. And we built it from the ground up. And if we would have tried to build it from outside or right off the bat, a 3,000 member organization, it would have failed.
Yeah, probably out the gate, that should not be the goal out the gate. But that is a lesson to individuals who are starting nonprofits. Sometimes we don't look at the resources in our backyard. The mere fact that you guys recognize that there was an opportunity to build something within the organization that you work for is actually pretty astounding. So what is at the core of VETLANTA? What is your core?
So our core is passion, volunteerism. You know, I volunteer 600 hours a year to make this happen. So we have a lot of people who have similar stories, connecting nonprofits with academia, with government organizations, with businesses of all sizes, with both veterans and families who need help, and veterans and families who are looking to give back. So really that's at our core, is to move the needle, to help veterans, whether it's a veteran that is transitioning from the military and looking for a job, maybe their resume is not great, maybe they've never interviewed, like myself, I had never had a job interview. Maybe it's the homeless veteran shelter that needs additional resources. You're connecting, you know, veterans that have issues with post-traumatic stress disorder or traumatic brain injury. You know, we're very blessed here in Atlanta to have some great nonprofits that help with that. Maybe you're a veteran that is looking to start your own business. You know, we're able to connect you with the legitimate resources and then with our supplier diversity program. So it's all about connecting the dots.
Now, speaking, because we spoke about this on the radio, PTSD. How bad is it really? Because the media makes it look like it's this overwhelming thing that is overpowering the veteran community, and you don't agree.
Yeah, well, you pick up the newspaper, whether it's in Atlanta or across the country, they're generally not telling the good stories. Right?
Yeah,
they focus on the bad. And I can tell you everything I've read, and you know the amount of people that have post-traumatic stress disorder not in the military is actually very similar to the ones in the military. And you know that might surprise some of your viewers, but PTSD comes from a lot of things. It comes from being in a car accident, from being assaulted, from bad marriages. So there are a lot of different ways that come down with post-traumatic stress disorder. I can tell you generally the veteran population, many are dealing with it. Many don't have it. So most veterans do not have post-traumatic stress disorder. By great means, most don't. And then a lot that do have it are treating it very effectively or coping with it very effectively. More so than I think the civilian population.
Really?
I do. I honestly think that because there's a lot more resources out there. There's a lot more attention. Versus if you're in a car accident, you're generally not going to go get help unless your insurance provides it, right?
This is very true. Absolutely true. Okay, so let's get down to brass tacks. What are you guys seeing as far as transitioning? People coming out of the military, going straight into civilian life. What is that looking like in the community?
You know, the good thing is there's more resources available. I can tell you when I transitioned 13 years ago, there wasn't a whole lot of nonprofits. Nobody was beating down their door to help me. So now there's all kinds of resources. Generally, veterans don't have a big issue transitioning. So where they do run into some struggles is they have closed networks. Generally, a Marine is only going to network with other Marines, and an airman the same. And so they don't know people. Like when I moved to Atlanta 13 years ago, I was a very social person but didn't know anybody here. I didn't have that network. So that can be a struggle. Veterans coming out, believe it or not, they're generally more competitive for a job than their civilian counterparts, just because of the soft skills and hard skills, the amount of education they have, the amount of leadership and management, both education and experience. But where they fell is a lot of them have never written a resume. And a lot of them don't know how to translate their skills both in the resume or in their interviews. And then in the military, we also have this we attitude. So when you go into an interview, it's not about we, it's about I. You know, as a hiring manager, they want to know what you did, not what we did. So they can struggle at times with that. But the great thing is there's a vast amount of resources that are able to help.
Okay. So when we were on the radio, we talked about the distinction between some of these offices and what they do. So I will ask that again. Places like Veteran Affairs, things like that. Give us maybe 2 or 3 that they would definitely want to know and what they do.
Sure. The big one is Veteran Affairs. So generally your benefits are going to be ran out of the Veteran Affairs. So if you're a service member that has a medical issue that's been service connected, you know, you can go to the VA hospitals for treatments. So they're also going to take care of your disability status for you. They're going to determine your disability status, which can affect your retirement pay or your tax exempt status. Additional benefits that the VA has to offer beside healthcare is education benefits. The Montgomery GI Bill, which is really important. You get so much money that you've paid into for your education. It's a wonderful program. Another one is your VA home loan. The VA offers guaranteed home loans. It's an incredible program. And then we kind of laughed around on the radio shows, like even if you don't use all those other benefits, you're going to eventually die.
Which I still think is morbid, but okay, I still think it's a little morbid.
So you might not ever go to the hospital, you might never go to school or any of those others, buy a house, but you're going to die. And as a service member, you have burial benefits. And so they can help you with that. The VA used to help with veteran employment, but honestly that didn't make much sense because there's already a government agency to help with employment, and that's the Department of Labor. So they're your good belly button, the touch for employment. And in addition to the federal organizations, there's a lot of state organizations and local organizations. So whatever community you're living in, look around, you know, go on the internet and take a look. There's resources readily available to help you. And then if you have any questions on any of the resources, Charity Navigator. Charity Navigator, you should vet any organization you're looking to help you out. Either vet them by word of mouth or through something like Charity Navigator.
Okay, so let's talk about your organization. From 2019 to 2020, what were some of the great things you guys were able to accomplish?
So, one of the things we're focused on the ATL, on the 22 chapters or 22 counties that surround Atlanta, and to be plugged in to move the needle, because we're making Atlanta the premier community in the country for veterans and their families to work and live. We have to be connected at the local level, at the state level, and at the federal level. And in 2019, we had Governor Kemp, who's the governor of Georgia, come out to a summit and be the keynote speaker. And whether you're Republican or Democrats, it doesn't matter. Veterans have needs, and generally veteran are bipartisan. People want to help veterans. So we need people from all around, both sides of the table, to help veterans. And we were able to get him as the keynote speaker. We had over 1,000 people show up. It was in Mercedes-Benz Stadium,
which is nice.
And so that was a big one for us. And now, going into 2020, we want to establish more ties with the city of Atlanta, Mayor Bottoms, and getting the city more involved. We've had great county, and we've had state, and federal has definitely jumped on. So going into 2020, it's the city of Atlanta.
All right. Okay, so we've talked about your organization. Was that everything that was on your list from 2019 to 2020?
There's lots of things, but those are the heavy hitters.
All right, so what's on the agenda for 2020?
So we have a summit coming up on March 3rd. Pfizer is hosting that summit, and that summit's going to be dedicated to small business owners, small veteran-owned businesses, and looking really forward to that. It's been a little bit since we've done one of those. We're focused on improving the homeless veteran situation here in Atlanta. We got a lot going on, whether it's continuing to help veterans find quality jobs, helping them find the healthcare resources, the homeless situation. There's always something going on in the club.
In Atlanta, period. Speaking of homelessness, is that a significant problem in Atlanta for veterans? I know as a whole it is, but for veterans.
It's significant. Anytime you have somebody living on the street, it's significant. Although some of our past mayors have disagree with the statement, you're going to always have homeless people. So there's a small percentage that just don't want to move off the streets, and that's the same for veterans as well. And if you go in any homeless shelter, it's going to be a common theme. So it's a significant problem, but it's not a problem. Usually people think about homeless, they think of the city. So I can tell you there's homeless people living in the mountains in Dahlonega, in Cherokee County. You'd be shocked.
I'm shocked that you.
So it's just not a city problem. So there are some great resources. We're very blessed in Atlanta. We have Veterans Empowerment Organization, which is the nicest homeless shelter I've ever been to. It was started by a Haitian immigrant, Franz Fortune, that moved to Atlanta, thought it was a national disgrace that we had homeless veterans, and did something about it.
It makes sense. And you were saying that it's in what side of town? That homeless
That's
shelter?
in the Westlake area of Atlanta, so just west of the stadium.
Okay. Because I have no idea what it is. But okay, now that you said that, now I know where it is. All right, so tell us about 5 organizations that for individuals who are just now getting either transitioning or getting ready to transition from military to civilian life. Give us 5 great organizations that they probably want to look into.
Yeah, great. So the first thing when you're transitioning, don't wait until the transition or a couple months out. You should be looking at your transition 12 to 18 months out. And the top organization that I tell people to look at is American Corporate Partners. American Corporate Partners will actually give you or your spouse a free corporate mentor for a one-on-one mentorship for a full 12 months. So here you are, you can start developing plans 12 months out with your corporate mentor. And whether it's growing your network, working through the job offer process, to really narrowing it in on what you want to do, how to translate your skills, American Corporate Partners. The next one, I refer 100% of the people who contact me looking for a job is Hire Heroes USA. Hire Heroes USA is a national nonprofit. They're headquartered in Alpharetta, Georgia, which is where my office is. And they will provide a quality resume for you and your spouse, free of charge. They have a great format. I see huge success. They will also set you up with mock job interviews. I can tell you, leaving the military 13 years ago, I had never written a resume, and I had never had, while I was good speaking, I never had a job interview. So practicing before you do it is very, very important. Another great one that I look at is 4Block. 4Block is a national nonprofit. They get their biggest chapter here in Atlanta, and they help veterans that have transitioned from the military into academia. And they've gotten their degrees. Now they're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road, and it's time to get a job, to start their next careers. And they need transition help, and they will help them from a wide range of things. They have a consultant that comes in to teach them how to dress for success. They have somebody I teach a block on corporate culture, because understanding corporate culture is very important. And then all the soft skills you're going to need to land that next job. So that's a really big one. The USO, the United Service Organization, that's also a great resource. A lot of people think of the USO and they think of Bob Hope entertaining the troops, or being at the airport for a place where veterans or military members can go chill out for a bit between flights. But they also have a great transition program. And then the final one is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has a program called Hiring Our Heroes Corporate Fellowship, where the Congress passed an act several years ago called the VOW Act, which allows you to do a corporate internship full 6 months before you separate from the military. So they put together a great national program together to take advantage of that act.
Okay. So what's next for VETLANTA?
VETLANTA is continuing to be the collaborator on steroids.
You guys do like have a lot of collaborations.
Yeah,
It's a lot.
Continue to do that, keeping it at the core. So we ask ourselves this all the time: what is our objective? To help veterans. So so any way we can do to help veterans, and that has changed year over year. 6 years ago, it was all focused on employment. Employment numbers were 15. Unemployment was 15+% for veterans. Well, that's tapered off to now about 2.5 to 3%. So now we've shifted focus to other areas. So it's knowing what the market is and continuing to shift and to help veterans.
Okay. How do we get in touch with you?
So me personally, LinkedIn. I'm big into LinkedIn. Look me up on Lloyd Knight. I'm the Lloyd Knight at VETLANTA, the Air Force, or UPS.
He does respond. I would definitely say that he does respond to messages.
I'm very
on LinkedIn.
responsive.
He really is.
And the second way is vetlanta.org, VETLANTA.org. Sign up for our newsletter. Even if you don't live in the Atlanta area, sign up for the newsletter. We're not going to spam you. We don't ask for money. So we're going to give you a newsletter that tells you what we're up to, some of the nonprofits that we're affiliated with, and you also get direct invites to our events.
Any parting thoughts for those that are watching?
Small things add up. So if you know if you have something that you can offer, whether it's serving meals, helping mentor somebody, helping write a resume, whether it's the veteran community or the community, civilian community in general, step up, give an hour or two a month, and that's what makes our country great, when we're willing to help each other out.
All right, everybody, there you have it, Mr. Lloyd Knight from VETLANTA. And we will see you guys next Monday, same time, same place on the Leadership Blend television show with your host, Ricardo D. Rice.